Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. Here. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show, and today we have a special guest on. If you have been stressed out about taxes ever in your life, maybe because you don't understand them, you don't understand their purpose or how they apply in your life, I think that everybody needs a good tax planning professional tax advisor, not a CPA who's just going to plug numbers, but somebody who understands tax codes, understands what the purpose is, and how to show the powers that be what they want to see so that you can be who you want to be. Okay. So Ben Golden, he's out of Alabama, and he has had a very prolific life. I'm excited for him to share all of his stories with you, but he is a tax resolution specialist, which is really key for people who think, oh, you can't help me. I screwed up on my taxes. I'm having to pay thousands of dollars. Look, there's so many things you can do. You can go backdate taxes for 3 years and repropose. Okay, that's what it is. It's a proposal. Repropose a different payment plan. And sometimes it gets approved if you have a good person who knows what they're doing. So tax resolution specialist, tax planner. He's also a national speaker. So he goes all over the country speaking about this to help people accomplish this. Not because he has to. He's a business owner of multiple businesses. It's because he loves to. So if you watch my Facebook, I do what's called, I'm redoing the SMART goals. And the first one is sexy, right? And the reason your legacy, your dream needs to be so sexy is because it needs to be so sexy that you can't get it out of your mind. You can't not think about it. It's like, pardon anybody who doesn't want to hear this, but it's like a good porn video or something, right? It's just like, you can't not think about it. Okay? This is the thing. So your legacy, your dream, it has to be that attractive that people can't not watch it. Okay? And that's what this dream is for him, teaching people about money. He can't get it out of his mind. He's obsessed with helping people. And that's the people I'm bringing on this show, people who can't not serve. They can't not add value because they're so obsessed with blessing people's lives. That's how attractive what your dream needs to be so that other people will see it as a legacy and build it. Okay. So don't crucify me. You can if you want, but whatever. I use graphic language to express how important this is because you only got one life, friend. So if you aren't living it to its fullest, it's going to be gone and you're going to have regrets. So the more graphic the language, the more real things become. And that's what I want for you guys. So Ben, thank you so much for coming on here. Go ahead and give us a good description of your story. Lead us through why you are who you are, how you became who you are, and some of your failures, your successes. And what was that point when you decided, you know what, I'm going all in. I'm going to build my legacy regardless of what anybody else thinks about me.
Thank you so much for having me today, Sam. I believe that legacy is a key for who you are as a person, what you want to be and who you want to be in life. So I really appreciate you having me on today. So, from a really young age, I told my dad, look, I was 8 years old. I said, look, Dad, I'm going to school. So get ready. I'm going to go to college. So nobody really in our family had gone to college. So I told him from a young age, this is what I want to do. When I got there, I found out I enjoyed accounting. If you can actually believe that people enjoy accounting, I don't know. I liked it. Graduated with an accounting degree, went to grad school in San Francisco. And I'll tell you, moving from Alabama to San Francisco, that's a little bit of a move, little bitty farm boy from Alabama. I grew up in a small farm town in Alabama, grew up on a farm. A lot of people don't understand, even at a senior in high school, my mom would call the headmaster and say, "Hey, Ben's out fixing fences. He's going to come in late today." And look, that was part of life. And, that's the way I grew up as an 18-year-old. So went out to San Francisco, got my graduate degree, went to work for a large corporate firm. I found out pretty quickly that I did not want to climb the ladder. There's so much politics involved and backbiting, and it's all about me, and that's not really who I am. I learned pretty quickly that wasn't for me, and the reason is because that's not who I am and how I was brought up. I was brought up to help and to be an advocate for people that can't do for themselves. So in the tax world, when I purchased my first business at 26, I knew that I wanted to help people. So shortly thereafter, I opened another firm. So I had two accounting firms running side by side. I'll tell you right now, focus on what you're good at, because for me, I got out of focus for a little while, and I said, well, I think that it would be good for me to invest over here or invest over here. And my focus has always been accounting and helping people with their taxes and planning and things like that. And so when I got out of focus, I trusted others to see my best interest at heart, and it didn't happen. Long story short, I had to go to my wife. Now, I considered myself pretty successful as an accounting business owner. I owned two accounting firms at the time. I had to go to my wife and say, "Hey, babe, I've made a bad investment. We're going to lose our house. We're going to have to move out of our house, out of a 4,000 square foot home, very nice home, into a 1,000 square foot apartment, and we're going to lose everything. But guess what? We still have each other."
She doesn't even want you at that point.
No, she didn't hit me with anything at that point, not yet. When we got married, I told her, I was like, I think one day I want to own my own business. And the only thing that I ask is, I just need your support. That's the only thing that I ask. And I said, I'm going to have wins and I'm going to have days when I don't win as much. We'll get to my definition of success in a moment, but that was definitely one of the days that I did not win. So a lot of people, when they take that flying leap off the cliff of entrepreneurship, they think that it's smooth sailing. I'll tell you real quick, Sam, I got a little too close to the cliff. I hit the cliff. I got a concussion, fell back off of the side there. So, you're not going to win every single time. And it's not about if you win or lose. It's about how you pick yourself back up. My wife stuck with me through the process. And, today we're stronger now than what we were when we went in. And that's what it's about. That's what I think a legacy is about. It's not about where you are right now. It's about where you want to go and how do you bridge the gap between those two. And you work towards that daily. I ended up selling both of those accounting firms. I bought a construction company. I've got a great story with that too. I still own it right now. And then I opened this resolution firm. And the reason is because I enjoy railroad work, but I absolutely love helping people out of tax problems. And that's really the passion of why I do what I do, is because, somebody comes to you with a mess. They have absolutely no financial future, and they have no thought of being able to get out of the mess. And you put a package together, and you put some tools together that the IRS will let you do, and you completely turn their life around. I had one client that told me, they owed $370,000, and we ended up settling for less than 10 grand. And the wife called me and she said, "I want to let you know that my next kid is going to be named Ben." So, we changed their life, and it's not about me. It's about how much we can help people. But I think that's what a legacy is. It's, what do you want to be remembered for? How do you want to be remembered? And for me, I want to be remembered for the happy-go-lucky guy that did all he could to be an advocate for others and help. And that's really the way that I've lived my life to this point.
Yeah, I love it. This is fun. I'm excited to dig into this because there seems to be some similarities between us, which is good similarities. So I don't know that it was like expected or not expected in my family to go to college. All my parents, grandparents, my grandparents were school teachers, and my parents, they both graduated. Like everybody in my family, I think went to college that I know of, except for, I mean, I went for a little bit, but not that I didn't complete. I got my associate's degree, so that's good. But something I think is interesting is at 8 years old, you knew what you wanted to do and you knew your value. Like, hey, I value my future enough that I'm going to make it to college. And at 8 years old, I didn't know that. I was homeschooled, so it was a little different. But by the time I was 11, I had decided I was done doing homework. It was a waste of my time. I didn't enjoy it. And so I told my mom and dad, said, look, I'm done doing homework. And we lived in Idaho, farming town, 2,000 people, And they said, well, if you either are going to go to school, like you're going to keep doing homework, or you've got to go get a full-time job. Now, in Idaho, I still to this day am not positive it was all legal. I know they took taxes out of my paycheck, but I don't know that they ever did the government. If you know what I mean.
Yeah,
but
I get it.
I started working full-time at 11 years old at a honey extracting plant. And I've worked ever since. Like I just have worked full time. I've loved working, and there was times during summers and different areas where I didn't have work. But I will never forget before that point in time when I was probably 9 or 10 years old. A neighbor asked us to come over and pull our weeds, and we were homeschooled. So I was like, "Yeah, have them go work hard." We went over there. My brother and I, we looked at the job and we're like, "Yeah, we'll do it for like $5 an hour." And my mom, well, the lady, she's like, yeah, I'm not going to pay you that, so no thanks. So we just went home. We're like, fine, if you don't want our work, we'll go home. Well, my mom's like, what are you guys doing here? You guys are supposed to be over pulling weeds. We're like, yeah, she didn't want to pay us what we thought it was worth. She's like, well, what'd you tell her? Told her $5 an hour. And she's like, So we had to go back and we worked for the next week and a half for free. It sucked. But it was a good lesson. It taught me how to work hard, but also taught me it's okay to know your value. Later, when I had moved past the honey extracting plant, I was 12 years old and, 13, I think at this point. And I was working for a bricklayer, and I was running a crew of running these paver driveways and managing 3 or 4 adults who were 20 to 40 years old. They were all getting paid $10 an hour. I was getting paid $7.50. And I figured that out, and I called the boss, and I was like, look, man, you got to at least pay me what you're paying these guys. And he said, well, you're a kid, and they're adults, and they have families, so they get paid more. And I was like, oh, well, then I quit unless you want to pay me more. And he called me back the next day, and he's like, sorry, I'm going to have to let you go. I'm going to fire you. And I was like, no, I already quit. Like, if you don't want to pay me, I already quit. You can't fire me. But good on you, friend. But what's important about that is from a young age, you knew your value, and it's important to think what was your value? What was your self-concept from that young age? Because if it's nurtured, that can become something amazing. And as a parent, if you're listening to this as a parent, are you helping your children identify their value? If you're listening to this as a leader, as a manager, as an entrepreneur, the people who are working with you, are you helping them identify their value and praising them for their value and encouraging them to increase their value? Like that, I think that's the key point here is, I don't know how your dad responded when you told him at 8 years old you were going to go to college.
Oh, he didn't even remember. My mom is the one that reminded him. And he was like, yeah, son, whatever, and my dad didn't go to college. I was the first one out of my dad's family. Now he has, 8 brothers and sisters, and, our family reunions, we have like 250 people there, really close, large family. And I was the first one to go through graduate school out of the entire family. So, there really wasn't an importance of school. It was hard work. And so I got sort of both. In college, a lot of people don't understand, but for me, I held 3 jobs and went to college full time as an undergrad. And I worked 1 full-time job and 2 part-time jobs, and went to school full-time undergrad. And when I went through graduate school, I had a full-time and a part-time job at the same time. And I went through an accelerated program where you took a 2-year degree in 6 months. Well, it was actually 9 months. So, I mean, work, I've never been scared of work. And I've always said to myself, if I can do nothing else, I can work hard and I can give somebody the value of what I think I'm worth, and just work really hard. And that was one of the things that he really put into me is it's okay not to be the best, but you will be a really hard worker. And what you lack in knowledge, what you lack in ability, you'll make up for by being the most persistent, by being, high quality, things of that nature. So he instilled a lot of great attributes morally and character-wise into me, to just have that, I guess, that stickability, or to have that, desire to make sure that even though I knew I wasn't the smartest or the brightest candle in the bunch, my candle was a little different, because I would work hard when others would slow down.
Yeah, I think that's important, because when it came down to you saw the corporate world, and I try not to be too offensive to people, but also my objective is to be real and again, be crass and draw contrast so that it wakes you up, right? It may not be as bad as I say it is, but if it's even close to as bad as I say it is, you should be thinking about it, okay? And here's the reality. You already knew your worth. You already were thinking about your life from a perspective of, I know my value. I'm going to go show you my value. And if you don't like my value, I'll take it elsewhere, right? The corporate system, corporate structure is not designed that way. The corporate structure is designed to purchase people's lives from them and dictate. I mean, it's legalized slavery of the mind and of your time. It is what it is, right? You're compensated, but
yeah. And for me, I'll tell you, when I went in and talked to one of the partners in the large accounting firm, he asked me straight up, "Do you want to be a partner here?" And I was like, "I would love to be a partner here." He said, "How long do you think it'll take?" I said, "Well, how long does it usually take it?" He said, "It usually takes 8 years to be a partner here at minimum." And I said, "I can do it in 4. And he laughed at me.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, and I took a step back and I looked at where I was, and I did what you said. I took a true awareness of where I was, and I looked at it from, a 10,000 foot level, and I said, am I going to deal with all the politics that go into this? Am I going to deal with all of the different people's attitudes, and when they're having a bad day, what they and how they treat others? Am I going to deal with all the rest of everyone else when I know that it needs to be me and me alone that makes it? And if I don't make it, it's my fault and not, John's fault that's in the cubicle beside me. So there again, I went back to self-reliance and depending on myself and saying, I don't need to have to depend on everyone else for me to make it up this ladder. I just choose not to climb it.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if you ever heard of Ed Milet, but he always talks about at what point is your will to win purchase, right? So maybe you make $200,000 or $300,000 a year, and so then you're not going to drive as hard, you're not going to push as hard, you're not striving for excellence. And I think that same concept can be put into a corporate structure where maybe it's not your will to win necessarily, although I do think that that's being purchased daily, people's will to win. But more importantly, if you don't have a good self-concept and you don't know what your morals are, know who you want to become, and be focused on that now, then their highest bidder, let's say somebody's going to pay $150,000 to go work for their corporate firm. Well, the reality is at that point, you're now hooked to that income, and so you have to deal with the politics, you have to deal with the lying, the backbiting, and you have to play the game to feed your family. And so they will purchase your integrity. Again, for me, it has, money is not the issue here. It's, are you going to allow somebody to purchase your integrity, to purchase your desires, to purchase your time, to purchase your family, simply because you haven't taken the time to identify inside of yourself what your true worth is? Because I believe that every individual is worth, and this is not just what I believe. Okay, you're an accountant, so you can confirm this from the accounting perspective. But here's the deal. No company is ever going to pay you what they think you're worth. Because if they did, it would be a loss for them. And so they would be making no money off of hiring you. The fact that you have a job, by definition, means you are worth more to that company than they're paying you.
Exactly.
Like, that's just the facts of the matter. So stop working for less than you're worth. Like, they obviously think you're worth more than you are. You need to believe you're worth that.
And I was, like I said before, I was born and raised in a small town on a farm in Alabama. Okay. So let me just tell you something about me. My word is my bond, and my bond is my word. That means if I shake your hand on it, if I tell it to you, that's the way that I feel. And I'm not going to lie for anybody, even if it means me getting ahead or not. That's why I couldn't walk up the corporate ladder, because if it meant me sacrificing my integrity for, dollars or to get ahead of someone else, that's one of the problems that I had. And it wasn't about money for me. Money, it means more to me to be integral, and it means more to me for me to do what I actually say I'm going to do than it does to make more money or to look better in somebody else's eyes. If I make a mistake, I'm going to own it. I read the book, you've got to own, you've got to own and take responsibility of yourself and take true ownership. I don't remember the name of the book now, by Jacko.
Extreme Ownership.
Extreme Ownership. That's, the name of it there was. I believe in extreme ownership, and you have to take extreme ownership. And if you don't take the responsibility, it's like I told you before, I believe in the 3 R's in life. If you don't take the responsibility, there is never going to be a reward. Sometimes the responsibility means that you need to say, yeah, it's my fault. But you know what? At the end of the day, you win because you're integral in doing it. You may not keep your job. You may have made a mistake. But at the end of the day, you can lay your head on your pillow at night and say, I took my responsibility. I owned it. And I'll tell you what, I'll take the consequences of my problem or whatever it is. I believe in the 3 R's, like I said: risk, responsibility, and reward. Okay. And with the 3 R's, if you're not willing to take that risk, or you're not willing to take that extreme ownership and that responsibility, at the end of the day, you won't have that reward. And maybe that reward is, for me sometimes, laying my head on my pillow at night and having a clean conscience and having a clean heart, and knowing that I'm going to sleep well, knowing that, hey, I'm good. I did the right thing today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious, just because integrity is one of my top 3 core values, like candor, which means I say whatever the heck I want, out of love, an intention of love. Like, I'm not out to hurt people, but I'm going to be as direct as possible, and sometimes exaggerating the crassness of it, just because I want people to think I don't like that, right? I want to trigger people so that they start to take a closer look about what they do and do not like in life, rather than just keep moseying along. And then gratitude. Those are my 3. But integrity comes up because people are like, well, you can't ever be perfectly integral or integral. And I agree with them. I'm just curious from your perspective, some honest feedback here. So percentage, if you were to just randomly throw up a percentage, how often are you living perfectly in integrity versus how often do you not quite measure up to what your ideal is?
So I do my very best every single day to even leave the white lies away. Okay, we're not talking about the big boys. I'm talking about the white lies. So for me, the question I asked one of my employees the other day is this right here. Okay, Tommy, how long have you known me? He said, well, I've been working with you for about 16 years. I said, okay, how many times in the 16 years have I ever lied to you? And he said, never. And I said, now, do you think tomorrow, when tomorrow comes around, because of the last 16 years, my track record, do you think I'm going to tell you an untruth then? And he's like, no. I said, so understand what I say is my bond. And I really do my best to live through that. I would say that I'm probably about 95% integral and probably 5% non-integral. I say that because I don't think that anybody deserves 100% all the time, ever. I don't think that there's ever a 100% mark.
Sure. I mean, the reality is, I mean, this is just basic life, right? If you're driving down the road, you told your wife you're going to be home at 5 o'clock, and there's an accident, you're home at 6, guess what? You're no longer living in integrity with that commitment. And so that stuff happens. When I say integrity is my core value, it's not that I know I'm going to live perfectly in integrity my whole life, because it's not. I don't believe it's possible, as he just said. What I think is possible is I just want to be crossing that line as frequently as possible, right? And that kind of leads to this next thing that you said, and that is that you have a constant reorientation towards your goal and how you want to be remembered. It's a daily thing. What's the gap? Where am I going? Where am I at? What's the gap? How can I close that gap? And how often can I review that gap so that I can get there? And that's what's crucial. It's not about living a perfect life. It's about doing your best to cross your goals as often as possible and be on track as often as possible. It's like people think that an airplane or a boat, you go and you're just like, oh yeah, we went in a straight line. No, they have a guidance system that the whole entire time is constantly readjusting their focal point to where they're going, and they always end up where they're not always, but they do their best to always end up where they're focused on, because they're constantly redirecting, not because
there's always an outside pressure. There's always an outside force against you. You know, integrity is a lot like a river. Okay, if you go and you stand in the middle of the river, there's going to be current against you. There's always going to be a force against you pushing you the other way. You always have to continue to make the decision to do the right thing. That's what I think the struggle, there's always going to be a struggle. If you stand in one spot, you're moving backwards. Okay? It's always a struggle. You always have to push forward. And guess what happens in the struggle? You get stronger. Okay? So, you know, if you stand out in the weeds and you don't go into the current, you're never going to get stronger. You're just going to stay weak and malnourished. You have to get out to the current. You have to get out and fight to win. And it's a struggle every day, regardless of what it is. If it's being integral in what you do, if it's always doing your best to make the right decisions for your family, even though it may hurt others, if it's, you know, whatever it may do, whatever it is, you always have to struggle to make that right decision, to, you know, you always have that choice. You always have the choice.
Absolutely. I was speaking with a client yesterday, and we were talking about different financial products that she could use for her future. And I proposed one that she was not familiar with. Familiar meaning the crowd of people that she associates with doesn't use this particular resource. And she's like, oh, I want to do more research. I don't know anything about it yet. And I was like, okay, well, what do you know about the things that you are familiar with? So I had her explain what she knew. And I was like, okay, so you know more about the new thing that you're not familiar with than you do about the thing you are familiar with. What? And she's like, well, I just don't make decisions like that. And I was like, okay, let's be honest. How often in every other area of your life, in your religious life, in your sex life, in your diet life, all these things, do you just follow the crowd? If you go to a new crowd, your language, you just go to a new crowd, they all start swearing, so you start swearing? No, in no other area of your life do you follow the crowd, except for, unfortunately, in your financial life, you've chosen to follow the crowd. So now what's more inconsistent, right? And once I drew that contrast, she's like, okay, yeah, let's do it, right? Because now I said, look, no other area of your life are you following the current. Why are you going to choose that route here? Why are you going to in the weeds here? And she's like, oh, okay, I'm not. Let's do it. And so helping people draw that contrast, like you think you're all this opposition or going against the grain, but then you actually aren't in so many cases. Let's get educated. So let's turn to that for a second here, because I want people to understand taxes in a deeper level after this. So what do you believe is the purpose of the tax code, or like the being taxed? What's the purpose of it?
Well, I mean, let's be honest. The reason the tax code is what it is because there's outside forces forcing or asking or pushing Congress to go a certain way. Okay, the reason why the mortgage interest deduction is in there is because the housing market pushed it to be in there. So there's a lot of special interests and things like that that push taxes a certain way. I firmly believe that. I don't really want to get into that certain aspect because you just can't really do a lot about it. I think that everyone should pay their fair share of taxes. Okay. My philosophy on tax is a lot like a dissenting Supreme Court justice said in the 1950s. All right. He said, it is your duty as an American to pay your fair share. However, it does not make you more patriotic to pay more than your fair share.
Amen, brother. Amen.
What does that mean? What does that mean? That means that the code is written in a specific way. It's either explicitly written or you can imply, okay? That means that you make a choice and then things are not black and white. Code says A, but court says B, okay? So it's a shade of gray. We work in shades of gray. It's not a black and white more times than not. So what we want to do is we want to get you on a substantially better footing than not, okay? So I believe that people should pay the least amount that legally they could pay. I don't personally agree with a lot of the ways that Congress spends our money. I'm not talking politics, Republican, Democrat, administration. I'm not talking about that. I don't like the way the government spends money. I don't like some of the things they do. Doesn't matter what they are right now. But because of that, I think that everyone should pay their fair share only and nothing more. Because there's always going to be programs that Ben doesn't agree with, that Sam doesn't agree with, that Aunt Susie doesn't agree with, you know. So why should you pay more to fund things that you don't agree with? Mm-hmm. That's my personal philosophy on taxes.
Yeah, and I think what's important there in what you said is you got to pay your fair share, but no more than you're legally required to pay. Most people, in my experience, I meet with a lot of people, they don't understand what they're legally required to pay. They just do what everybody else does, and then they end up overpaying, and they get these things called tax refunds, which in many cases, again, you can say it however you want to, but in my opinion, you just gave the government a 0% loan if you're being optimistic, a negative 3% loan if you're counting inflation. You paid the government 3% to take your money for you from you for a year, and they give you back less than 3% of what they took from you. And it was your money. It was never their money. It's like people think of this tax fund as a gift from the government. No, that was your money they took from you not because they wanted to, but because you didn't get educated on how much you were supposed to pay.
So let me ask you one quick question. We're not going to talk about court cases right now. How many words do you think there are in the tax code and regulations and whatnot?
Oh, total? I don't know.
7 million. Okay, yeah, 7 million. Okay. How many words are there in the Holy Bible?
I don't know, honestly.
670,000. Okay, so I want you to understand. You know,
that's nuts.
The comparison between the two. All right, so I mean, there's just wow. I mean, what can you say other than wow? There's nobody that can understand all of the tax code. There's nobody that's going to understand everything. There's no one that can give you a guarantee either. If they guarantee they can do something, you better be careful. Just be careful, okay? Watch what that guarantee is. Because at the end of the day, I don't know everything, and no one out there does, okay, period. I know some unbelievably smart people that teach tax rule, regulation, and law that are, 100 times smarter than me, and they don't know everything. So there's no one that can, but I'll tell you what, there are people that specialize in different aspects of either the code or the regulations or, wealth planning, whatever it may be. Nobody is going to know everything about their industry. And that's what I want to say. You're not going to know everything. As an entrepreneur, I can't know everything. Get that out of your mind. Okay, you need to focus on a certain place, and you need to be the best that you possibly can inside that place. And that's where you need to be. Okay. So a lot of people say, well, I can't be a business owner because I don't know enough. That's like saying I can't be a parent because I don't have enough money for a kid yet. You'll never have enough money for a kid. You'll never know enough about business to own a business. So look, that's why I personally, I took the leap of faith off the cliff of, corporate world, and I did a flying squirrel off the side of it, and I've hit this side 100 times already. I've got bumps, scrapes, bruises, and like I said before, a couple concussions, I think. But
Sure.
you can't let fear dominate your legacy. You can't let fear dominate who you want to be in life. You can't let worry, be the thing that stops you from being what you want in life. A lot of people think that mindset is mumbo jumbo, and you don't really value mindset and things like that. Listen, every single morning I get up and I do my affirmations. I talk to myself. I remind myself of the value that I have. And it's so very important. I still do it to this day. I didn't really start doing it until a couple years ago, but I believe the things that I say every single morning. If you don't know what affirmations are, Lisa Nichols is a motivational speaker. She talks about her affirmations every single day. Do it. It'll change who you are. It'll change the mindset of who you think you are, and it'll change the value that you think you're worth. Because more times than not, as a child, we are all told you're not valuable, you're stupid, you're not worth it, you're going to amount to nothing. You can't do this, can't. Well, stop people telling you what you can do. Live your own life and live it unfearful, and live it in such a way that, live today like nobody else does, so tomorrow nobody else will live like you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Dave Ramsey says.
Yeah, no, I agree. So on that note, because that's something that gets developed. I think that's a muscle, just as you said, going against the current. That's something that you develop. Tell me a story of your biggest naysayer as you jumped into full-on business ownership, and how you kind of, if not silence them to where they were satisfied, at least silence them in your own mind, so where you could stay focused on what you knew you needed to do, regardless of the naysayers around you.
In my life, I've had a lot of naysayers, and I've done a lot of different things. I was big into wrestling in high school, and I had so many people tell me I can't because I'm not big enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm you can't. And that's just a word I've never really decided to believe in my vocabulary. I've saying that something I've said my entire life: can't, never could. Okay. Can't, never could. And if you continue to tell yourself that you can't, well, you never can. I think, was it Ford that said that it doesn't matter if you can, it doesn't matter if you can't. If you believe you can't, you won't, or something. I don't, probably destroyed that quote, but if you don't believe in yourself and you can't do it, then you won't do it. So in that part of my life, I had a lot of people telling me I couldn't do it, and I wasn't big and I wasn't strong, but I told myself there's got to be some edge that I've got to have somewhere. So I practiced really hard, and I ran 10 miles every single day, and I had a great, workout regimen, and there weren't very many other people that had the strength that I did at the end of the rounds, and that's where I won, because I developed a way at the end of the day to, have an edge on others. My family has always been supportive of me, even though they don't understand a lot of the things that I do and say. I had a professor in college that told me that I would never be an accountant, that I wasn't smart enough and didn't have the goods to do it. The partner that I told you that I said that I would make it in 4 years, he laughed at me and pretty much told me to get out, laughed me out of his office. And you know what? I didn't ever say that I would be a partner at his firm. I just said I would be a partner, and guess what? I left that job and bought my own company. Well, I made it.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's
So, don't take those people that say you can't. Add that as fuel to the fire.
yeah. A lot of people take that sting of rejection and let it dictate their lives in the opposite way, and say, oh well, he doesn't believe in me. He's been doing this for 20 years, so if he doesn't think I can, then I can't. Rather than, oh man, that's so unfortunate that he doesn't believe he could have done it in 8 years. And
Exactly.
I came across this just recently. I have somebody that I'm mentoring, and I was in that guy's position, not from a position of like I wasn't laughing or not like openly not believing in somebody from a perspective of telling them that they can't, but it can be just as damaging if you're not challenging somebody at their level of what they think they could accomplish. Then if you're challenging them at a lower thing, then you're in turn saying, well, I don't think you can accomplish it. And I had that problem because I only accomplished what I've been able to accomplish. It took me X amount of years. And so when this new mentee of mine came in and they were wondering, well, what can I accomplish? I was just challenging them to do what I did, like that seems good for me. And then they called me out and they're like, dude, I feel like you don't believe in me. And I'm like, what? I believe in you. I believe you can do what I did. And then they're like, no, I think I can do it better. Like, challenge me more. Give me more challenge. And I'm like, okay, but that was a wake-up call for me that even as a leader, sometimes you can get complacent and say, well, I'm only going to challenge you to do what I did. Now, what if Ben were to go out and say, look, you're brand new, you're going through school. I think you could go be a partner in 1 year or 2 years. Like, it doesn't take 8 years or 4 years. You don't even have to get out of college. Like, you can go buy a firm or whatever. I mean, every industry is different, but like, you can crunch that time frame because I've already learned stuff that it's not going to take you as long, right? You have to shift your mind as a leader to say, okay, because it took me 4 years, now I know everything not to do, and you can accomplish this way sooner.
And you're 100% right. It is a muscle. The brain is a muscle that you have to work quite a bit because you have to believe in yourself. I mean, there again, going back to the mindset and affirmations, it's been a big game changer for me to really believe, well, look, I am worth it. I quoted someone a really unbelievably high fee the other day, and it was a challenge for me just to do that. I mean, it was the first time in my life for a tax resolution case that I quoted a 6-digit fee to do the work. And the problem was I had to get through the barrier of quoting the fee just to see, can I do it, and is my value there? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? Got through the barrier of quoting it. They didn't go with me, but I'll tell you what, I'm no longer afraid to quote that again.
Sure. And oftentimes this is what's also funny. And this is, we have these thermometers in our life where it's like, oh, I don't think I can do that. So we stay with these smaller fish clients. And in reality, and I don't know this specific situation, but I see this happen in other people's lives. It's not necessarily that 6 figures really matters. It doesn't matter how big that number is. Because you could say, well, it's still only 6% or 10%, or it's only a percentage of what I think I can save them. The difference is I've been working with somebody who I can only save $10,000, so now my percentage is $500 to do that work. But now I'm dealing with somebody who's a billionaire, and I'm going to save them $1 million. So for me to take 10%, it's not really that big of a deal for them.
That's right.
And so, but in our minds, we see it as the dollar sign rather than as the value we're adding to that client. And that's where the contrast we have to draw and say, look, it's not about what you think you're worth. It's about what do they think this is going to be worth for them, and charge what they think it's worth. Because if you undercharge them, you're very likely have the same thing. They're like, man, there's no way that I'm going to get my value's worth if I only pay this guy 25 grand to do what I need to do. Like, he's going to help me save $1 billion. If that's the case, and he only charged me 25 grand, he probably doesn't even know what the heck he's doing.
He doesn't even know what he's doing. If you went to buy a nice, expensive car and they only charge you $25,000 for it, what would your first question be?
Yeah, there's sawdust in
What's wrong with it? What's wrong with it?
Exactly. What the heck is wrong with this thing? Yeah, and that's something that we all have to get, and we have to think about that not just from a business perspective, although it's applicable, but from a leadership perspective, from a parenting perspective, right? You've got to challenge your children, your people that you're leading at the level of which it's going to be worth for them to make that change. So, can't emphasize that enough. I'm curious, if you're willing to share, what's been your biggest financial mistake, as far as like, what did it cost? What was the cost of your biggest financial mistake, and how did you recover from it?
Yeah, so I had an accounting firm for over 15 years, and I wasn't pricing right. And so over the 15 years, I was giving a lot of things away that I did not know that I should price right for. And I was talking one time, and I sort of got an epiphany of the fact that I had done, let's call it 700 of these types of transactions over that 15-year period. And, I should have been charging $5,000 per transaction. So I literally lost $3.5 million over that period because that transaction was very valuable. And I did not see the value of what I was doing for that client. I just saw the big win. Oh, we're going to be able to save you X number of dollars. And I didn't think that I should have charged them the $5,000. So, hard pill to swallow. I lost $3.5 million over that time. But I said, you know what? I've learned from it. I know how to charge my value and my worth now. I learned from it. Success to me is defined as learning from failure. Success is not winning. Success is learning from failure.
Mm-hmm. I love that definition. And I think it's the same way. If you're not willing to take and fail forward, you're never gonna get your true value, and you're never gonna learn.
Your three R's. Without a risk, there is no reward. Without a responsibility, there is no reward. Yeah. Take it to the bank, people.
Absolutely. Cool. So if we wanted to have you come out and speak or train, I don't know, because of COVID, I don't know how many people are traveling. Some people are terrified of it. I personally am not terrified of it, but that's neither here nor there. But if we wanted to have you speak to like our company or our clients or something, what does that look like? If you were to come speak to a group of people, either on Zoom, do like an online webinar, or in person, or if they just want to use you for tax relief themselves, maybe they're in a pickle and they want out.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about certain different things. I specifically talk quite a bit about tax planning, and I teach CPAs how to do tax planning quite a bit, as well as tax resolution and what that looks like if someone's going to start doing it from a tax standpoint. How do you do that? I talk a little bit about mindset and the importance of mindset, even maybe selling and whatnot as well. So those are some of the topics that I've discussed in the past. You can reach me through our website, goldentaxrelief.com, and you can either call me there or email to contact us there at the website, and we're more than happy to get in touch with you and see if there's any way we can help you at all. I believe in adding value. I believe in giving to get, and that's how my company is based and set forth.
Awesome, I love it. Well, we're moving into the last two sections here. So this last one's called Legacy on Rapid Fire. 5 questions, 1 word to 1 sentence answers. The first question got to answer with a sentence. Fair enough?
Sounds great.
Okay, so here we go. What do you believe is holding you back from reaching the next level of your legacy?
Marketing right now for me, because that's my biggest challenge.
Okay. And what do you believe the hardest thing you've ever accomplished has been?
I was a 2-time All-American flag football referee. That was a big one.
Flag football referee.
All-American. Best in the nation. One of the top 20 in the entire nation.
I've never even heard of such a thing. I love that.
So colleges have intramural programs called flag football, where you play football, but instead of tackle, you pull a flag instead of 2-hand touch, right? Instead of tackle and 2-hand touch. Well, you got to have referees for those. So I would go to I do it at my university for undergrad, and then I would go to regional finals where 14 or 20 different colleges would go to that regional and compete against each other, and then I would officiate there, and then we had a national tournament as well. So You have to get invited to the national tournament, and then you have to get invited to the regional as well. So there were 110 referees there the first year at the national tournament, and I placed number 17. And the second year I did it, out of 114, I placed number 2.
Dude, that's so cool. I didn't even know that's the thing. I love it. Cool. What do you think your greatest success at this point in your life has been?
I've been married for 20 years. So that's a great success for me.
That's incredible. I'm working on my 5th year, and I've loved every minute of it. I haven't had any complaints.
My wife is unbelievably strong to put up with me all the time.
Amen to that, brother. So true. What do you believe one of your secrets that contributes most to your success?
Tenacity.
Tenacity. That's a good word. We need to use that word more. And what are a few books that you'd recommend to the Fuel Your Legacy audience?
I absolutely love Extreme Ownership, and I absolutely love the E-Myth.
Yeah, those are fantastic. I love both of them. They're great at doing what they do. So here's the last question. We're going to pretend you're dead. Okay, you've died, and this is 6 generations from now. So your great, 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 great grandchildren, they're sitting around a table. You're able to kind of view or listen in on this conversation. What do you want your family to be saying about you 6 generations from now? What do you want your legacy to be?
I was always happy and willing to help people.
Awesome. Man, I love that. Hey, if you guys are interested to meet with him, if you have questions about COVID, specifically tax planning around COVID situations, the benefits, the loans that you're potentially eligible for if you're a business owner, any of those types of things, reach out to him. Ben is totally willing to help you. I'm assuming, even though you're in Alabama, you can pretty much work where you need to work. Is that?
98% of my clients are virtual.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's how a lot of the accountants that I know of, that's how they're working now. That's how I am at this point.
That's been the premise of my company from the beginning.
Yeah, I love that. So don't miss out on getting these questions answered. It's absolutely worth your time to hear about it and find out what could you be doing. It's not just about how could you do your taxes better this year. Every accountant I've ever gone to, I say, hey, here's the last 3 years. Go look at these too. Because if there's an accountant or a tax planner who can save me money in the past, I want to know about it as well. And it's super easy. It costs a little bit of money, but nothing compared to what they're going to help you get. So it doesn't really matter. It really is an investment. So definitely take advantage of that. If you have any other questions, you can always reach me at my website, samknickerbocker.com, or through my email at FYL instantly. So Fuel Your Legacy Instantly, FYL instantly @gmail.com, and you can reach me there. But with that being said, we will catch you guys next time on Fuel Your Legacy. Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me, and if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.